Wisconsin has always had a rich history of farming and agriculture. Driving along freeways and country roads alike, you'll see mile upon mile of vast farmland where people are growing the food that feeds America. This rich history and mass production of food is not without its issues, however. With the ever-increasing need to feed a hungry and growing world, farmers are forced to develop new technologies and practices to increase their yields. Farm output has grown by 170% between 1948 and 2015, even though the amount of labor and land used fell by 75% and 24% respectively. As some farms get bigger and bigger, many small farms are having to close their gates, causing us to lose both our connection to those who produce our food and an important piece of our local economy. Food now must travel much farther to reach our plates. The environmental impact of modern farming practices, demand for healthier, more nutritious food, improved local economy, and a closer connection to the land and the people growing our food has inspired the rise of the local food movement. Scattered among the mega farms of today is a new generation of farmers who are taking it upon themselves to bring back local food, a healthier alternative, and a connection to the very thing that gives us life. The farmers take pride in the land they steward, the crops they grow, and the animals they raise. These are just a few of the farmers and organizations in central Wisconsin helping pave the way to a more sustainable agricultural future by bringing food back home.
So I'm Polly Dalton, and I'm a member owner of Rising Sand Organics, which basically means I'm one of the lead farmers on here, which all 11 of us are. Well, I think you'll probably get a different answer from all of us about why it started, because we all kind of had some of our own motivations for starting. But my partner Orrin and I had been farming as an LLC, our own operation, Field Notes Farm, for a number of years, and both of us had interest in doing other stuff in the community besides farming, and also we were looking to purchase some land, but it was going to be really difficult to do that unless we decided to basically go 100% all farming all the time.
So it was started, I guess, from a group of friends who in one way or another had worked together previously and knew about each other through connections in our community. And I think that everyone wanted to work in the soil, work with the land, and see different projects or interests that they had come to fruition, but they didn't necessarily have the resources to do so. I think it also came about because of an interest within all of those individuals in working collectively and cooperatively and not doing so individually. I think there were a good number of people that wanted to further explore farming, agriculture, and peripherally related projects in a different context than they could working for someone else. It's a diversified vegetable operation, so we grow everything from, greens, salad mixes. We do storage vegetables, usually in our fall shares, onions, potatoes, garlic, pretty much anything you can think of. Your standard vegetables that you can see in the grocery store aisle, plus some more strange stuff.
I think that the local food movement can be described by a few words, probably a lot of words. One word that I like is resilient. Another word I like is independent. I think that it brings people closer to a kind of freedom that we don't always associate with our lives, with the regular lives that we all lead. I think that it's easy to lose sight of what makes us really truly free as individuals. And I think that localizing food and bringing that into your life really gets you a lot closer to that kind of freedom. I personally feel that nothing is really going well if our natural resources are not healthy and well and functioning. And I think that local food pays attention to that. Local food recognizes and respects that concept, that the way that we live our lives, namely how we eat, has a very big impact on our natural resources. And so from a very, very baseline level, I think that local food is important for stabilizing our relationship as humans with our resources and making sure that we're not taking more than what we really should.
There's something about starting things from seed, seeing the whole process, seeing the death and the rebirth and the regrowth.
I think my own connection to the land and the food I produce kind of goes beyond like the economics or the pragmatism of it, or even the physicality. I used to say that I need to grow food, but I don't know why I needed to do it. It just felt important. Personally, I do this not so much to try and change the world, but because it's more of a selfish thing I might need to do for my own soul. And I'm still pursuing that and trying to figure out completely why, but I know it feels really good. I think that it helps me grow. It connects me with not only the physical aspect of the land and the area, but the metaphysical aspect of it too. There's something about, there's the feeling of being in a hoop house all day and pruning tomatoes and getting green fingers. But there's the walk at the end of the day when the sun is setting and you're tired and you're going to eat a really good meal. And that's all that needs to happen for that day to feel like a full, complete, good day. And I think that it's easy to do that when you're around the food. It's really breaking life down into its simplest components and being able to learn from that. However, with your soul or with your mind or your hands.
I think that our role in this movement here can be to help show people what's possible. I know that before I got involved with this, I didn't really think that it was really hard for me to picture myself in a position like this with access to the things that I have access to now. Doing what I'm doing now. It was really hard to imagine that. And I think that with the cooperative model and with the other really passionate, driven people that are involved in this, I think that it makes it seem more possible.
From my perspective, and when I started becoming someone who actively grew food, the more I learned about the cooperative model, that was always kind of my dream of starting a farm that was that under that framework, partly because I like doing things with other people and with my friends, and that's how I got started growing food. And you just recognize like all the strengths in that. It's like everyone has different skills, different temperaments, different mood swings and energy swings, and so that working with other people really feeds off that. So I think that our role is really important as a cooperative, especially because demonstrating that this model can be successful with a number of people working together to steward land. Just like being able to own property together is it balances the need for your own individual control. you don't need to have control over every system and every facet of your whole operation, but being a part of that and having other people to help you understand that leads to a much more vibrant, like, long-term farm success too.
I don't want people to think that this is that unique. I mean, I think it is unique in the sense that it's special, but it doesn't have to be this novel thing that is out of reach. You know, I think that's where I'm going, is that, because for me, for a long time, like, if I were to buy organic food from the market or from the co-op, I would covet it for like as long as possible. And I wouldn't always, it could even go bad because I wouldn't eat it in time, you know, because it felt like so special that I had to treasure it and like do something really good with this food, make a really great meal. And I just think that's a waste of energy to look at it that way. And then it's sort of, I think it ruins the magic of it, because then it's suddenly unattainable. So I would like our role to be helping people see that this can be a common, regular, normal way of life.
I have a couple of different roles in the community, which I always think really feeds into my work as a farmer overall. I do a lot of substitute teaching. I see like what kids are eating for lunch, and we also compost. We have our compost program at a couple of schools, but you get to see just like how kids are even like thinking about and interacting with food, and how they're just like interacting with each other, which I think is really important because they're the future and they're going to be our future customers and future stewards of the land, hopefully. And so I think that's a really important role that I play, because I often tell them if I have a chance or they ask that I'm a farmer, and that's a story that's just not really told much, because less than 1% of our population is farmers, like true farmers. And so I definitely want there to be a lot more farmers in the future, and it's something that I've been working on for a little while. And one of the ways that happens is that it's a story that's told that you can be a farmer and you can be successful and have a viable life as a farmer.
I would mostly like to see local food grow, because when local food grows, it's not only, that people are meeting their farmers and being able to understand better where their food's coming from and engage in that, but they're also engaging with people who are in touch with the land and can help educate others. And yeah, generally the farmers in the area that I know are very diverse and eclectic people. So they're not just interested in farming. So I think that they're interested. They have the sort of spice of life. And if people can hook into local food, they're going to be hooking into the spice of life that they might have lost through the sort of systemic training that our modern society has put them through.
Us were ecology students and came into food from a beginning standpoint, really from probably more of a sustainability standpoint, but it's grown a lot over that. When the local food movement started around 2005 or even earlier, we started realizing sort of how food and how small diverse farms could play a part in like ecological restoration and biological diversity. And like I was saying, a lot of that for me came from my Peace Corps and coffee experience. But then once we started growing our own food, really in early 2000s was when things kind of expanded for us and for the general public, like beyond the ecological benefits of local food, looking at also the economic benefits, like the local economies and shopping locally, And the local communities, like having small diversified farms as part of the landscape also. And like I was saying, the seasonal food workshops, like building a local food culture where people like are coming to events and going to the farmers market and doing these, farm to table, on farm dinners, things that are more cultural events than, like environmental, so it really seeing all of those things start to tie together was really awesome. Like that's what motivates us now. Things have changed for us a lot over time, from being more like environmentally concerned to being more like, how do we make this environmentally friendly but also produce enough to make a living? But we didn't start out as farmers, so we started out with these other careers and really still enjoy doing that work that we did before. So for us, it's more of a balancing act of like, how big can we grow our farm to where our life doesn't become too crazy, because it's kind of like we want to do it all. Like we want to be able to do the teaching work and the consulting work that we've done before. We also want to have our family and have a homestead here, and then at the same time have a small farm. And I don't know, I hope that other people see that that's a possibility as well, like that you can blur the lines a little bit. You can, you can be multifunctional, and when you are, you can also create a landscape and, a culture of that as well, so more integrated, more community based. It's been interesting with this, COVID thing going on now, that it's pushed people a little bit farther. People who, like at the farmers market, for example, people are turning to the farmers market and local food as a way to find like healthy, safe food, and also as a place to get it where they're not going into crowded stores. And at the same time, they're saying, well, like, this is a better option. I can support local farmers and small businesses while I'm doing that. So it's really connecting a lot of those dots. Like, this is safe, this is healthy, this is a better way to support my local community. And it's a nice thing that's come out of a bad situation, For me, it started out from more of an essential thing, like vegetables, meats, staple foods. But I've also seen it kind of going this direction of like really specialty niche things, like really like boutique, gourmet stuff. And that's cool. I mean, I think like our coffee and our meats and everything, like there is a really high quality standard that we're trying to meet and make things really delicious. But we still want it to be like seen not as like elitist gourmet stuff, but like everyday food, like that you can buy, people can afford and consume. Having a network of other farmers that know what you're going through, and people that support you at the farmers market and are like, wow, we really appreciate that you do this, that makes it fun, makes it rewarding, and you remember why you're doing what you're doing, even when it seems crazy. But it's worth it, when you get to live and be a part of this ecosystem like that. Like over time, you develop this appreciation for your own role and in the place. Things that like seem like a real hardship eventually grow into something that you really appreciate or you really like value. Like it builds your character, it builds your connection. This is exactly how like humans can work with nature and create these edible ecosystems that have been happening all around the world for, hundreds of years, thousands of years, and we're just starting to re-envision what agriculture could be like. I get scared when I see the scale of like tractors and the thought of like fertigation and the planes that like spray the fields and like having planes flying over here in the summer. The idea that that's how we're growing food. You've got our farm on this side of the road where, we do everything by hand. We don't use any sprays, any chemical inputs. And then across the road, you've got like this 100-acre field, and there are like signs that say, do not enter like toxic, like dangerous to your health to go in here. And it's like, yikes, like which place would you rather have your food coming from? Like a place where you're not even supposed to go, or a place that's like welcoming you to like come in and like be a part of this farm, like come here and feel at home.
My understanding is from the history and from friends is that Farm Shed started around 2007 as a group of people in the community meeting for breakfast and talking about ideas around sustainability and food. Those people, some of them were young farmers, some of them were just impassioned eaters, people connected to the university. And they really just started taking on projects. Some of those projects still live today. So a few I could mention would be the Farmer Tribute Dinner, the Food Fair, and the Farm Fresh Atlas was an early project of folks just getting together, talking and thinking about local food and what it means to our community.
So Farm Shed's mission, put pretty simply, is to grow a resilient food community. And what kind of comes from that is the idea that food should be grown in a sustainable manner, that our community should know how to buy, preserve, harvest, grow local food, and that we should kind of have this reciprocal relationship between our farmers and the community.
I grew up in Portage County, and I can remember in the early 80s being a young child and getting to know a lot of people who had come back to the land in the 70s and really were living off the land. And when I look at the overall local food movement, I often think about those folks that I knew when I was a kid and see so much excitement for it just continuing to grow around how do we get to know the people who grow our food? How do we learn more about what is best for the earth in the way we grow our food or raise the animals that we eat?
For me, the local food movement is simply being able to, create a meal from food that I'm able to with food that I'm able to recognize its origin. And broadly also being able to go to a store or go to a market and be able to actually know and communicate with the people that I'm buying from. Sort of the push and movement towards having more awareness, education, and engagement with our producers and with the food system in our area. A lot of the reason why the local food movement is so important is not only for reasons related to sustainability, the fact that when you buy locally, you often cut transportation costs, and if you're buying from more small scale farmers, you're also just looking at farms that have roughly just a smaller carbon footprint. Having knowledge about where your food is coming from is extremely empowering. I also think that it teaches you to eat and buy and consume just differently. Food doesn't come from a grocery store. It comes from farmers who work really hard to assure that you're able to feed yourself and feed your family. So I think local food is important because it really fosters and really forces you to think about what you're putting on your table for dinner every day.
Farm Shed's role in local food has always been about connecting people wherever they are in terms of how they eat to the opportunities that surround us within local food in our region.
When you go to a grocery store, like a regular grocery store, to buy your produce or your meat or your eggs or your dairy, versus buying one from the farmer's market or from a local store like our co-op in Stevens Point, I think that you're honestly buying two different things. Not saying that what you're buying at the regular grocery store is bad necessarily, but I think that what you're buying from when you go to a farmer's market and you buy eggs that might be a little bit pricier or tomatoes that might just cost a little bit more money, I think you're supporting and kind of contributing to a relationship that you have with the person who's growing your food.
The way that I look at local food and Farm Shed's mission for building a resilient local food community is not an either or. It's people have options and people have choices. Our role in that is to help make sure that we have good education around all of the options around food. And my hope is that by connecting people more to the small family and cooperatively owned farms, it opens people's minds to good questions to ask, good things to look for. But it should really never be an either or. There's space for all kinds of farm and agriculture in central Wisconsin.
Food is not only a necessity, but it's also can bring people together. It's good for your family. It's good for communication. It's good for your soul. In order to invest in something that's that powerful, you may need to divert your dollars away from something that may not be as healthy or as beneficial to our community as a whole, and invest it in something that might matter a bit more.